Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Okay, thank you. Thank you all for joining me today. My name is Adrienne Shields. I'm the Director of Library Service, Assistant Director of Library Services at Southern University Law Center, and also an instructor of law. I teach legal research, but I also teach the law and technology courses. In the past, I co-taught them with someone you may know, Robert Fernier. I'm not sure if that name sounds familiar to anyone. I co-taught those classes with Professor Fernier, and some of you know he passed away earlier this year. But I'm here today to teach you. I'm not sure if I'm going to be teaching you or not, but I'm going to talk a little bit about ethical uses of ChatGPT in the practice of law to save time and money. Okay. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the ways that the use of ChatGPT went wrong. A real estate attorney realized that the cases that were cited in a legal brief by opposing counsel didn't sound right. She did some research and found out that they were fake. Once she did her research, she filed a motion with the court, and the court did its own inquiry and found out indeed those cases were fake. So the firm who submitted the brief and with those cases, they were issued a fine, and then the person who actually did the work was fired from the law firm. Okay, and I've given you the citation in case you're just interested and want to go back and look at that article. A law firm sought more than $113,000 in fees from a client based on the research that they had done, saying that ChatGPT said that they would reasonably be expected or could anticipate being paid $113,000 for the research that they did on a case involving a child with ADHD. When the judge found out that that was their reasoning behind using ChatGPT to determine those fees, they were also fined, but they only got a portion of the money that they were actually asking for in those fees. I think it was roughly $60,000 less than they were asking for. And they were admonished by the judge for using ChatGPT for actually trying to come up with their fees. And then in a third instance, a new law school graduate was asked to work on a motion by his bosses, and this was on top of other assignments that he had already received from the bosses. He was overwhelmed by his work, and he decided that ChatGPT could help him. But when he went over the brief or the motion, he found out that the information he provided in the motion was false. So were those cases. And so he was fired. And if it's of any interest to you, he has now started his own law firm called Available AI Legal Services or Legal Solutions. So I guess that's the good side. You know, something good came out of it for him. He realized the ability to harness AI, but it goes to show that we have to put some barriers, some guidelines, some guardrails on ChatGPT and generative AI in order to make it work for us in the legal profession. So what are some of the problems that we see with ChatGPT and AI in general? The accuracy, because AI generally wants to give us probabilities instead of accurate information. There's also some bias involved with ChatGPT and AI, the volume, the absolute amount of data and information that you can get. There's cybersecurity issues, IP issues, and then there's shadow AI. Anybody familiar with what shadow AI is? Well, according to the article that I linked down there for you, what shadow AI is that some companies, they don't realize that their employees are actually using ChatGPT and AI in their work. So some of the stuff that they're producing on the job is actually using generative AI or a large language model. So that's where the shadow AI comes in. And so if you don't know that your employees are using that information, how can you be certain that what they're producing is their actual work product? Especially if you don't have a guideline in place about using the rules in your office, your school, about using AI on the job. So the ABA has has tried to take on the use of artificial intelligence in the practice of law. And in February 2023, it unanimously passed a resolution, which was 604, that restricted the use of AI in the legal profession. And so the restriction is basically that attorneys, anyone who's using AI, has to be in control of it, and you're responsible for any issues that arise from the use of that AI. So if the cases aren't correct, if the citations are wrong, if they just make up the citations, anything that results from your use of AI, you're going to be responsible for it, good or bad. So that's one thing that you have to remember when you're trying to use ChatGPT or AI in your legal practice. But how are some of the courts dealing with AI and ChatGPT? There are some judges who have banned the use of AI in the courtroom. They don't want to see anything related to AI when you enter their court. And they're even going as far as asking lawyers to sign pledges to disclose if they have used AI in their work. If they've used it for motions, memos, briefs, anything like that, they have to disclose whether or not that tool has been used in their work. The Florida Bar Association is weighing a proposal to require attorneys to have a client's permission to use AI. So I don't know if that's going to be in terms of like the retainer agreement. When you sign that with the client, let them know that the use of AI may be used when trying to do research or any other type of work within that client's matter. There's also a point of discussion among judges whether or not it violates honor codes requiring whether honor codes requiring attorneys to swear to the accuracy of their work apply to generative AI. And then there's also a push from bar associations to have professional education courses in tech for attorneys. So that may be another part of your CLEs for the attorneys in here. You may see as a part of your CLEs where you have to do courses in tech. In Louisiana, where I'm from, we have to do courses specifically with ethics and professionalism, but I'm pretty sure soon we're going to see where tech comes into play in our CLEs. Anyone here practicing attorneys? Okay. Do you have an ethical part component?
I hold my Ohio informed licenses and required tech CLEs.
Okay. Yes.
I'm in California and they just implemented it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So it seems like it's going to make its way through, and pretty soon all 50 states will have a component of education in tech. All right. So how can you ethically use ChatGPT? I would think some of the easier ways where you don't typically see too many citations, maybe be forms. So retainer agreements, things of that nature. But of course, if you're going to generate a retainer agreement, you're going to have to actually go through and read the retainer agreement and make sure it's not listing something that is improbable or unconscionable or illegal in that agreement. Letters to the client. Interrogatories might be another place where you can use ChatGPT. Opening statements, closing arguments, but again, rereading all of this information to make sure that it is in line with the case, with the evidence that was presented in the trial, so that you're not going beyond the scope of the representation or what was brought into evidence. So you actually have to read what ChatGPT or whatever large language model you have used, what it has produced. So how do you save time? By using ChatGPT, we all see that when we use a large language model, we can maybe cut our work in half. So we can assist clients quickly. And by assisting clients quickly, we can probably assist more clients, right? So that could mean maybe we're making more money, but but it also may help in the work-life balance. So if you don't want to spend hours and hours a day in the your law office or wherever you work, this may help you to create that work-life balance where you can get home to your child's karate lesson or soccer game or something like that. So using it ethically can help you save time, assist more clients, and then work quickly. But what fee do you charge the clients if you're using ChatGPT or another language model? What would you consider a fair fee? What does the client consider a fair fee? It's like if you only taken 20 minutes to do something that formerly took an hour to do, can you reasonably charge the client the same amount of money as you would for the 20 minutes versus the hour now? Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's going to be what is fair to the client in terms of how much work you're actually doing. But you're still using your knowledge and your skills to help your client, because you're going back, you're reading everything that ChatGPT may have created, and you're making sure it tailors to the specific client's needs, and it actually comports with the law of your jurisdiction. So how does ChatGPT save you money? You may not need associates anymore, because the work that whatever platform you use, whatever, if it's ChatGPT or another one, it may be able to do the work of the associates for you. So you don't have to put associates on your payroll, so you're cutting expenses that way. Paralegals, you may not need paralegals anymore. Clerks, and you may not need a separate department for IT or AI. And we all know about Westlaw, Lexis, AI, VLEX, that they have their own platforms with AI and large language model capabilities. They can answer legal questions. And what's good about these platforms is that they're taking these answers only from their platform. So it's not like ChatGPT, where the information, you don't know where it's coming from, but it's actually coming from the databases within Westlaw, Lexis, and VLEX. You can draft documents. You can filter what you need to make sure you only have, instead of looking at so much information, you're only filtering it to what you need. There are enhanced citators to make sure you are citing correct, accurate, current law. You can get a graphical view of your search history. So not just of the history of a case, but your search history. So you can see where you've searched, so you don't have to go back and try to recreate your searches. You can also get human experts who are constantly training these models to make sure that they're giving you accurate information. So it's not like ChatGPT maybe, where you're not sure who's training it, but these are companies who are hiring people specifically to handle training these models to make sure they give you the information you need. Some other businesses that you may not have heard of, Paxton Legal AI and Spellbook. These are also legal platforms that were created by attorneys that are looking to break into this area. And who knows, you may have the skills, the knowledge, and an idea to create your own platform that will put Lexis, Westlaw, should I say that on the video? That, could be competitors, I'll say that, to Westlaw, Lexis, ChatGPT, any other platforms that are out there. So you could have a $1 billion idea right now and you just don't know it. All right, any questions? Yes.
Sort of addressed it in the keynote presentation, that a lot of the fears and anxieties that people have about these AI tools are just problems that they have with capitalism. So when you said this in eliminating the need for associates, paralegals, and the other sort of administrative side of things, it really kind of made me a bit anxious. So mostly working with law students, as an academic law librarian.
Hi.
Hi.
So that slide about ChatGPT potentially eliminating the need for associates and other paraprofessionals on the administrative side of things brought out a bit of anxiety in me, in that I work predominantly with law students who will become these associates, hopefully. So what are they supposed to do? And how do they compete with these partners who are able to be critical of these systems in a way that they may not be able to? What would you say to a law student who has some anxiety or fear about their job potentials?
Okay. So I have two thoughts about that. With law firms, I think it's not going to be that big of a transition from, I think there will always be associates at the bigger firms, and paralegals and things of that nature, especially paralegals, because one of the articles that I read was, it stated that paralegals provide income to the law firm, that if they do away with paralegals, that's a stream of income they won't be able to generate anymore, or they'd have to find another way to generate that income. So I think paralegals will always be safe, especially in a large firm. When I was talking about the associates and the paralegals, it's more towards small and solo practitioners who may not be able to afford another associate, bringing someone in, or a paralegal. And ChatGPT and Westlaw, Lexis AI, those might be the tools that would help them to compete with other small and solo law firms or other firms, and still be able to meet the client's needs. So I think there will always be a need for associates and paralegals. On the bigger side is the small law firms and solo practitioners, I think, that may move away from that. Yes, ma'am.
Following up on the question, or on your response, do you think that we need to advocate to the commercial vendors like OpenAI or Anthropic that they provide access to the same privacy terms that the enterprise clients pay, since the privacy terms for an individual account still cause issues for client protection of their data, whereas the enterprise accounts do not put the client data into situations where it could be breached, except potentially the abuse review?
Yeah, I think something like that needs to be in place, because anyone who uses that platform opens him or herself up for lawsuits, especially if the client's information is breached somehow. So I think in the future, there will be some type of mandate about that. I hope that answered your question.
One, thank you so much for your presentation. I look forward to stealing a lot of this for when I teach ALR in the fall. More seriously, regarding going back to fear of, being unemployed due to deployment of this technology, have you come across research that talked about how the use of this technology could interfere with subject matter expertise acquisition? So for instance, the idea that if someone does not have to spend the first 2 years of their career grinding through contracts and becoming expert by reading all sorts of contracts and what the implications are, that they won't have the expertise to understand a contract given to them, that they'll always be dependent on the AI and won't be able to do it as well themselves because of the crutch.
No, I haven't come across any of that in my research. I would think it's still just like any CLE or anything like that, I think it would still be where you need to have an adequate knowledge of the information in order to represent your client. I can't remember the actual rule from the ABA, but you have to have the knowledge in order to represent your client. So I don't think that ChatGPT or any other model will prevent or replace the knowledge you actually have to gain to represent your client. Because if you don't have that knowledge, then you can't understand whether or not what it's giving you is accurate or not. So I think you're still going to have to, or students will still have to actively learn and continue to learn in order to represent their clients, no matter which, if they use a platform like this or not.
I think you mentioned with the legal AI versions that it's supposed to be all their own content. One of my colleagues decided to test the Lexis AI by asking it to write a prompt in the voice of Bugs Bunny, and it did it correctly. So she was like, Bugs Bunny is Warner Brothers. That is not Lexis content. So that's a silly example, but similar to, I think, what your answer to Jen Wondrasik is, like, what sort of disclosures, what sort of ethical guidelines would you like to see these tools having to make sure that people can actually rely on what they're stating their content is? And if people are finding otherwise, how do we hold them accountable or, publicize ways to test that?
That's a good question. I hadn't really thought that far into it. I'm open to other suggestions. I guess one of the things is just to make sure that anyone who uses it understands that this is, it's a learning tool. It's constantly learning from other prompts, and that it may not always be accurate, maybe. But anyone else have an idea? Because I love learning from you as well.
I think what most people don't understand is in order to use the OpenAI large language model, you have to retain that underlying training data.
Mm-hmm.
You just add on top of it with, for instance, the Lexis primary law and the Matthew Bender treatises, things like that. So that training data is still there. That's why it knows who Bugs Bunny is and can repeat it. So a lot of people assume that data is erased and it's only Lexis data. Mm-hmm. But if it were only Lexis data, it would not be as articulate as they need it to be.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for attending today's presentation. Thank you for your patience with me with my first time speaking at CaliCon. So I hope you've been enjoying the conference, and I look forward to learning with you in the future. Thank you.